Hello chess friends and welcome to the channel. In round 3 of the World Team Championship, the match between England and United States ended with 4 draws. The other team with 2 victories in the first 2 rounds is the Russian team, and they played a difficult match against China. 3 of the games ended in a draw, but they were great fights. In 2 of them the Chinese player had some advantage. The third drawn one probably was the most exciting one with Grishuk that was winning with the black pieces against Wei Yi and just lost much of his advantage on move 39 and 40 because he was on time trouble. The game that I'm going to show you today is the 4th game in the Russia-China match, the only decisive one. Nepomniachtchi with the white pieces against Yu Yangyi with black, a game where white attacks the Petrov defense with a somewhat different approach, a game that I suggest you to watch. So let's start. Nepomniachtchi with the white pieces opens with e4, Yu Yangyi answers with e5, knight to f3 and knight to f6 the Petrov defense. Nepomniachtchi doesn't go for the main line but plays the third most played move, the aggressive d4. Here comes knight captures on e4, before recapturing bishop to d3, hitting the knight, d5 protecting the knight, and knight captures on e5. Knight to d7, knight captures on d7, and here bishop capture on d7 is much better than queen capture that would block the bishop on c8. Castle for white, bishop to d6, and here Nepomniachtchi continues with the sideline, but something that is surely prepared because it's impressive to say, but in this game, until move 18, Nepomniachtchi will use less than 30 seconds per move, gaining time on the clock. 18 moves. Knight to c3, this is the sideline that he prepared. Knight captures on c3 and b recaptures on c3. Castle for black, queen to h5, threatening checkmating 1 on h7 and also threatening d5. Yu Yangyi plays f5 and this is the best move, the only move that protects both h7 and also shield d5. And here comes rook to e1. Sergei Zygalko is the master of this variation. The 29 years old grandmaster from Belarus is almost undefeated in this line. He has a rating of 2604, so his opponents were all great grandmasters. And if you like this way to attack the Petrov, he is the master to study. c6 protecting d5 and bishop to g5 supported by the queen attacks black queen. Queen to c7, rook to e3, this is almost a novelty and again a move that Nepomniachtchi played in 20 seconds. Here comes g6 hitting the queen, queen to h4 and rook in a goes to e8, opposing the white rook on the e5 is a must. Rook in a goes to e1, doubling the rooks, rook captures on e3 and rook captures on e3. Rook to e8 and c4, this is the real novelty. The pawn is attacking d5, attacking the light squares and the diagonal that leads to the king. Of course, black can't capture if not is lost. Ferzek in his game against Doric in 2014 instead of c4 played bishop to e7, but after all of the exchanges and the last exchange is queen recapture on e7, this gives no real advantage for white and in fact the game ended in a draw. The black queen will easily move at first to c8 and then to e8. Okay, so after c4, of course black can't capture, but he changes the rook, rook captures on e3, bishop recaptures on e3, bishop to e8 with Yu Yangyi that tries to relocate the light square bishop that is really bad, and with this move also increase the queen's influence on the 7th rank. And now, after 18 moves, Nepomniachtchi starts to think, and he plays c5. Yu Yangyi answers with queen to e7, but this is an inaccuracy. Let's go back one move. The move to play is bishop to e7, and white has two possible answers. Bishop to g5 leads to bishop captures, queen captures, and even if this light square bishop is really bad, the position is almost equal. After bishop to e7 attacking the queen, white can also play bishop to f4 attacking black's queen, bishop captures, king to f7, and the game again looks like a draw. After queen to e7, Nepomniachtchi plays bishop to g5, queen to e1 we check, bishop to f1 shielding the king, and bishop to f8. Much better was bishop to c7 controlling the long diagonal. Here comes bishop to e3, and this is a great move that is the only move that gives white an edge. The bishop disconnects the queen from the pawn chain, and black can't play queen to e4 that leads to a queen exchange and a draw. More than that, now the bishop is disconnected, is closing the e file, and the queen can't go back in his own camp to protect the king. Any other move will give black the chance to play queen to e4. Let's watch. For example, if after bishop to f8, a4, here comes queen to e4, attacking both the queen and c2, protected by the pawn chain, and this forces white to exchange the queen, and the game is a draw. After bishop to e3, white really has the advantage. Here comes queen to a5. This is an okay move that doesn't help because black has no counterplay. The game is already lost. Bishop to f4, the idea is to play bishop to e5, and Yu Yangyi plays bishop to f7. This is one of the best moves, probably the real best. So let's watch another idea and one mistake. Let's go back. Queen captures on e2 is a clear mistake. In fact, here comes bishop to e5 that wins the game. Even after bishop to g7, here comes queen to e7 threatening checkmate. Bishop captures, but queen captures on e8 we check first, king to g7, queen recapture. White is a bishop up and with the dominant position. So this is a mistake. After bishop f4, if bishop to g7, the queen goes to e7, threatening the bishop. Bishop to f7, bishop to c7, attacking the queen, again capturing on a2, loses on the spot because queen to d8, bishop to f8, bishop to d6, and this is a simple checkmate in 4. So after bishop to c7, the queen must move to d2, queen to d8 we check, bishop to f8, bishop to d6, but the queen can move to h6 to defend f8. But here comes queen to a8 that will win one of these two pawns and probably also the second, and this maneuver wins the game. So bishop to f7 is probably the best move, and this is what Yu Yangyi played. Queen to f6, similar qualities of bishop to e5, bishop to g7 attacking the queen, and queen to d6. Queen to e1, the idea is to go back and help the king. Again, bishop to e3, close the door for the queen. Bishop to f8, and queen to b8. b6, c capture, a captures, and queen capture on b6. White is a pawn up and just created a pass pawn. Queen to a1 behind the pass pawn, queen to a7 protecting the pawn, and here comes c5. This is the last trap. If white captures, black wins the game. Let's watch. If d captures on c5, d4, not only attacks the bishop, but opens the right diagonal for the bishop on f7. Here the bishop must move bishop to c4 and white is lost. So after c5, queen to a8, pinning the bishop, and the idea now is to play bishop to h6, queen to e1, the idea is to go back and help, d captures, now to pass pawn, d4, bishop to h6, and of course now if there is no time for black to play the strong bishop to c4 because queen capture is already checkmate. Bishop to e8, Nepomniachtchi in this position plays queen to d5 with check, but there is a much stronger move. Let's go back. After bishop to e8, c6, and black has just a couple of possibilities. Of course, this bishop can't capture the pawn, or the queen will capture with checkmate. So the first choice is bishop captures on h6, but after c7, again, this bishop can't move to try to stop the pawn, and the only way to stop the pawn from promoting is to sacrifice the queen. After c6, another possibility is bishop to d6. Seems that the bishop is controlling c7, but here comes c7, and this is an exclamation mark move. Black is forced to capture, and after the bishop capture on c7, leaving this diagonal, here comes queen to a3, and nothing can stop the winning queen to f8 with check. The only way to avoid checkmate is to move the king to f7, queen to f8 with check, king to e6, queen captures, the king moves away, and the queen is lost, and so the game. So fantastic idea c6. After queen to d5, we are back into the game. Bishop to f7, queen to d8, queen to e7, protecting f8, queen captures, bishop captures, and c6. Bishop to d6, g3, this is a good move. Bishop to d5, and a4. This is an inaccuracy. It was much better to play first bishop to b5, protecting the pawn, because now black can capture the pawn. Yu Yangyi plays king to f7 instead of capturing, but black should capture. Of course, white is still winning, but without capturing it's too easy to win. And at the end of the game, I will show you the plan to win the game if black now captures. But he played king to f7. Here comes bishop to b5, protecting the pawn, bishop to c7, and bishop to f4. Bishop captures, g captures, king to e7, and here comes c7. Bishop to b7, protecting c8, but after a5, Yu Yangyi resigns, because at the next move, white will play a6, and this move wins the game. Let's briefly watch what happens. If king to d6, a6, king captures, a captures, the king captures the pawn, but bishop goes back to d3. This is an important and simple move, because with the bishop and the pawn protecting each other, this formation stops any type of counterplay with the d4 pawn, and white will win the game simply here on the king side. Now let's go back to move 39. After a4, that is a mistake, instead of bishop to b5, let's watch what happens if now black captures on c6. If black captures, here comes bishop to c4 with check. This is an important move because we'll put the king in the corner, and after king to h8, black can only passively defend. Here comes a5, of course, to save the pawn, bishop to c5, a6, bishop to a7, blocking the pass pawn, and king to f1, the king comes to help. Because let's remember that this is the mistake that sometimes I do in my games, that without the help of the king, almost no endgame is won. So bishop to b6, king to e2, bishop to e4 attacking c2, but white doesn't care, f3, bishop captures, and king to d2 hitting the bishop. Bishop to a4 and the king advanced to d3. Bishop to c6 threatening f3, but before moving or defending f3 comes bishop to f4 and capturing this pawn, lose the game on the spot because bishop to e4, bishop to e5 is checkmate with the two bishops. So king to g7, bishop to e5 we check, king to f8, bishop captures, and bishop to d8 because a changing bishop only favors white. Here comes a7. This move forces the king to move to the queen side and to abandon the king side. King to e8, f4, king to d7, bishop to g8, and now the king side and the pawn on the king side become the target of white operation. h6, bishop to h7, g5, bishop captures we check, king to c7, bishop to e4, bishop captures, king captures, and the king must move near the pawn to avoid the promotion. Here comes f5, g4, king to e5, the king will advance on the light squares, and of course white wins the game here on the king side. So it was a great victory by Nepomniachtchi and a game full of nice ideas. I have never used this variation against the Petrov, but if you did, please let me know in the comments below the video. Our analysis is over, but please, before you go, don't forget to like the video and to subscribe to the channel because many more great games are coming. For now, thanks for watching and goodbye.